Welcome everyone. Happy Wednesday. I know we're at 9 a.m. Pacific time right now. Just going to give a minute for everyone to join here. In the meantime, just a quick introduction on my end. And my name is Will. I work on the construction success team here at Fieldwire. And I'd like to thank you all for joining us today and for joining our Back to Basics Fieldwire webinar. I know start of a new year. Happy New Year to everyone here. And to kick things off, just want to make a couple of announcements and kind of a little bit of housekeeping around our schedule today. This webinar will be recorded, and a copy of the recording will be sent alongside with the deck that you guys see on the screen, and we'll be emailing you this information at the end of the session. To keep things on track, attendees will be muted through the session, but please feel free to ask any questions if you have any questions on your end on the Q&A panel. You can access it from the GoToWebinar, I think just some of the tools on the side. And we will try our best to get to all the questions, but in the case that we don't answer your question during the session, we will definitely have one of our experts reach out to you directly after our session today. We also set up a couple poll questions during the webinar to kind of interact with the team. So please feel free to select those answers and don't be surprised when the questions pop up on your screen. And lastly, we do have a couple survey questions at the end of the webinar. We would love if you can just fill it out, and this really helps us distinguish, what content we should deliver for the next webinar, how we can improve the sessions and make it more helpful for everyone here, and also plan ahead for future webinars that you may be interested in participating in. And with that said, I'd like to introduce you to your speaker and construction expert, Dylan Reed, who is a construction success manager here at Fieldwire.
Awesome, thanks Will, and welcome everyone. I'm Dylan Reed from the Fieldwire Construction Success Team. Just want to thank you guys for joining us today for our Back to Basics webinar. A little background on myself. Before joining the team at Fieldwire, I spent 3 years out of college working as a project engineer and assistant PM for a large plumbing and mechanical sub out in the Bay Area. I worked on a wide variety of projects with a focus on medical office buildings. And then in my time here at Fieldwire, I've helped some companies implement creative solutions and optimize their workflows, helping them save time and money and help their teams get the most out of Fieldwire. I just want to start off by saying that this webinar will be a little bit more high level, and we'll set the stage for some more detailed webinars coming later this year. We ended last year with some more advanced content that kind of dove into some specific workflows, and we wanted to start the year off by bringing it back to the basics, kind of go over what Fieldwire is, how we add value, and then how to get started once you buy it. So we'll be getting into some more advanced webinars later in the year, so definitely keep an eye out for those. All right, so what is Fieldwire? Or sorry, real quick, gonna go through an agenda. So just wanna go over what Fieldwire is, how Fieldwire adds value, and then we'll dive into a demo and I'll kind of show you how to get started on getting set up on your account and then set up on an individual project. And then at the end, we'll have time for a quick 5-minute Q&A session. So what is Fieldwire? Well, at its core, Fieldwire is it's a field and project management software that was built with the field in mind. So the whole idea is that it's easy to use and figure out with very little setup required. It's also a mobile first platform, meaning that we wanted to make sure that the mobile version was just as good and easy to use as the web version, instead of being an afterthought the way that some other mobile app versions of software can be. It was built to kind of help your field and office team save time and money by being super intuitive and collaborative. And our aim was to kind of improve the productivity of all users across the board by giving everyone one tool to manage all of their daily activities. And we do that by providing real-time progress tracking, messaging, and quick access to the latest project documents, instead of having to track information and progress through emails, text messages, and phone calls. Our software help streamline the collaboration and communication between the field and the office. And with Fieldwire, your construction documents are stored electronically and accessible both on and offline, which allows your team to have access to the most important project documents and minimize the risk of delays or due to a lack of information. In terms of strengths and the value that we bring to projects and companies, I would say that there's two sides of the coin that kind of makes Fieldwire so great. One, it's very easy to use, and two, it's very customizable. And those two things can kind of be conflicting principles for software. So I'll kind of dive into what I mean by that. It's easy to use in the sense that we offer out-of-the-box solutions for everyday construction needs. So this includes things like mobile plan viewing and markups, digitized forms like your daily reports, your T&M tags, inspection requests, basically any form that you could want to fill out in the field. And then, or using our task engine for something simple like punch list. Like our task engine is pretty much set up to go for something like punch list without having to configure much at all. And because it's super easy to use and learn, it allows those that are either new to tech and construction or less experienced to kind of quickly learn the platform, which in turn helps ensure that that companies are able to get a quick ROI after purchasing Fieldwire. I would say we definitely tend to shine when you get Fieldwire in the hands of those closest to the actual projects. You can think of like PMs down to journeymen. We've had quite a few customers try out other platforms and find that they use either a fraction of the features offered, or the features that they do use don't actually have a major impact on productivity in the field the way that Fieldwire does. And the beautiful thing about Fieldwire is that you can kind of quickly bring your company out of the Stone Ages and go paperless. And then as you continue to learn the platform and want to start making your processes even more efficient, you can easily continue to do so. So like an example of that might look like you buy Fieldwire and you immediately use our plan viewer to upload plans for all your projects, or you might use our forms feature to fill out your T&M tags or your daily reports. And then once you've established that your guys actually use it and you've trained them up fairly quickly, you might start exploring how to go deeper and get more out of the software. And that's where our task engine comes into play. And this is kind of that other side of the coin that I was talking about and what makes us very unique. So unlike many other punch list tools or task tools, our task engine is super customizable, and it allows you to track pretty much anything and everything however makes sense to you. And you can set it up to be very simple and track reactive items such as like punch list items, or you can use it to, or you can get as complex as you like and use it to track or plan all of your work on a project, or track your inspections, to track your prefab, track tools and vehicles across your company, or track safety related items across the company. Basically, the sky's the limit on what you can do. And we'll be doing a webinar dedicated to that next month, where we'll go into a lot more detail on how you can take advantage of tasks. But just wanted to kind of set the stage there and kind of give you an idea of like how Fieldwire is. It's very simple to use it initially, but you can start to get more and more in depth and get more and more use out of it as you continue to learn and want to go more in depth on the software. Another great thing is the ability to network information across a project within Fieldwire. So pretty much everything that you store in a project can then be networked in other places. So for example, you could have like a T&M form, or right here you could see this punch list, a T&M form that you can then hyperlink to a task, or link to a task, or you could have a file that you hyperlink to a plan. Or within this task here, you can see we have a photo linked within a task, or we have a task linked to another task. But basically, any information that you have in Fieldwire, it can be linked within other locations in that project, instead of having information like siloed off into one location like some other softwares do. So another huge benefit of Fieldwire. And last thing, another great benefit is the team behind the platform. So all of our construction success managers and many of our higher up managers have come from the construction industry and understand the needs of our customers pretty deeply and know how to bridge that gap between construction and technology. A large part of what we do is seeking to understand our customers' problems and then finding unique ways of solving these problems within Fieldwire. And we also have an incredibly responsive support team that will help you solve any issues that you might run into. And I'll show you how to get in contact with our support team in a moment here. But basically, the team behind Fieldwire is super knowledgeable and very quick to respond to any customer needs or issues that come about. So that's kind of how we add value in a nutshell, and some ways that Fieldwire is unique. Now I just want to get into how to get your account set up and get started on a project. So, one of the first things I recommend doing is figuring out how you want to roll out Fieldwire to your team. And you can do this in a couple different ways. You can take the time to like train a core group of individuals and really try to figure out exactly how you're going to be using the platform before training the rest of your team. The benefit of doing it this way is you do have a bit more control over how people are using it, and you can kind of create standardized ways of doing things. The downside is that rollout will likely take a little bit longer. And you'll still be learning the platform as you're kind of creating those workflows. So things will likely change in the future anyways. The other side of that is you could invite everyone that's going to be using it right away and do like a basic training on the core features to start. And the benefit of doing it that way is you get people on the platform ASAP. The downside is that there is less standardization and people will likely be using it differently based on their project, tech savviness, and management style. So with that said, oftentimes that can lead to people diving in a bit more themselves and like organically developing best practices and workflows. But I find it to be best to kind of have a mix of those two. I kind of recommend figuring out that low-hanging fruit in terms of core features and figuring out how your team would like to use those features. And then once you do that, just do a basic training for your team on those features. And that'll ensure that your team kind of gets up and running on Fieldwire in an effective way as soon as possible. And then that gives your team time to kind of focus on some more advanced workflows and processes that you can continue to implement as you go. And a lot of times you'll find that there'll be people that'll kind of pop up and will start diving in more and will be creating their own workflows and best practices. And then you can learn from those and start sharing those with the rest of the team. So basically it can be good to create a little bit of structure to start, but then let your team members run with it. And that often produces some great ideas and workflows.
Hey, Dylan. Sorry, gonna quickly just want to check here. It seems like we're all stuck on the first screen, and some of the users can't see the slides that we're sharing. I think it would be good if we can do a quick refresh and just check if seems like we're all see here. And sorry about that, folks.
Sorry about that. Are you seeing my screen now, Will?
Yes, we are now. Let me know here, folks, if you still are unable to see the screen. And seems like some of the folks mentioned yes. Thanks, Mitchell, for confirming that. Yeah, sorry, good to go.
Cool. All right, awesome. So diving in, we're now in the kind of home screen of Fieldwire here. We're on the projects tab. So within here, we have my projects. And these are projects that I've been invited to. These other ones are other account projects. So these are ones that I have access to because I'm an account manager, but I haven't been invited to. So I have to invite myself to those if I want to access them. And then below here, we have all of our different projects. So each tile is its own project, and we have some kind of basic information for each one. We have the name of our project, we have the code underneath it. Down here you can see, and then we have whether we're an admin. So this little like crown would mean that we're an admin on the project. And then starring, so if we star a project, it's just going to move those projects up to the top so that you can find them more easily. And then below that, we just have the number of people on each project. And then if I click on these three little buttons here on the top right of each tile, I can access a couple different things. I can archive or delete a project. I can also get into the settings, so I could change my name, my code, my label, which I'll show you in a second here. And then I can also archive, leave, or delete here. But if I go in and I edit the label here, so this is a new feature that we've come out recently with, and basically this is a way of kind of organizing your projects a little bit more effectively. And it gives, these are kind of some ones that have already been created, but it allows you to kind of create, like you can see down here, this is a label. You can give it a color, you can give it a name, and basically you can set these labels up however you'd like. You can do it by like status of a project, you can do it by your different project managers, you can do it by the types of projects, but you just go ahead and hit manage labels and then hit new label and then give it a color, and you can have as many of these as you like. And then if I went ahead and hit sort by label, it's going to group all of those together so there you can find them a little bit more easily. Moving on over into the Peoples tab here. So this is going to be where you can kind of manage all of your users on your account. I can then add users to an account, or I can invite them to a specific project. And this is kind of a basic view of like some basic information for each user. I can see how many projects they're a part of, what their account role is, and as an account manager, I can change the role of each person if I wanted to. I won't do that. But that's kind of the control you have as an account manager, and those are the 3 different roles that you have at the account level. And then I can also go ahead and filter out by the different roles here. If I just want to see my account users, I can filter out for those. And then if I wanted some more detailed information, I can export this user list. So if I hit export user list, it's going to generate a CSV that I can scroll over to here. And basically this is going to show me more in detail, like where, what projects each person's on, and then what their role is. So it's going to tell me if they're an admin, member, or follower. And you might notice that these roles are a little bit different from those account roles. And that's because we actually have 2 different types of permissions within Fieldwire. One's for the project level and one's for the account level. I'm not going to dive into that right now, but I will show you a great resource for kind of figuring that out on your own. So if you hit this question mark up here, that's going to pull up our knowledge base here. And then if I search for, in this case, I already have queued up project permissions, it's going to pull up all relevant articles around that. So we have a huge knowledge base with a lot of great articles. This is definitely one of the best things I can recommend for any new user is if you ever have any questions, just kind of search those relevant words, and then it's going to queue up a bunch of different articles that go pretty in depth on most things. So I can view it here in this tab, or I can also open this up in a new tab and kind of read it in a full page here. But this is actually, these articles are something that is like CSMs. If we're unsure of something, this is what we reference right off the bat too. So definitely highly recommend using this as a resource when you're getting started. And then below that, like I was saying, if you want to contact our support team, you can hit contact us here, and then you can send in a Zendesk ticket, which will you'll get a quick response, and somebody from our support team will help you out really quickly. Moving on to the next tab up here, so the account tab. So basically this is just going to tell you some general information about your account. The one thing I wanted to highlight here is this export licenses. So if I hit that, that's going to queue up another CSV file that's going to show me exactly where all of my licenses are going for each project. So this can be great for one, just getting an understanding of where your licenses are being allocated to, or it can also be great for billing. So if you're billing based on projects and usage of Fieldwire, this percentage right here tells you exactly, how much to bill for. Obviously this is super long because we have a ton of projects, but yours will most likely be pretty small to start. Awesome. And then last one over here, just the tutorials. These are just some quick videos. So when you're getting started, these are some good basic videos to review. And it gives you kind of a brief rundown of what to do for each one of these. All right, so getting started on building out a project. So when you do build a new project, you have a couple different options. You can either create one from scratch, which will bring you through a couple different prompts for setting up a project. It'll queue up uploading new plans, creating new categories, and then adding new people. That is probably a good place to start for your first one. But then once you kind of create your first project, the next step I would recommend is creating a template project. And this is a way that you can create a standardized template that can be used across the board for all future projects. So if I search out for this one, this is going to give me all the different things that I can kind of copy from project to project. And essentially it's going to be the structure of a project and not the content. So these are kind of all the different options. These first ones relate to tasks, which I'll be covering a little bit, but we're going to be doing a dedicated webinar on tasks next month. So we'll be getting into more detail on that later. And then people, if you want to copy over, a group of standard people, like, your project execs or somebody that you want to have, or an admin that you want to have on every single project, you can copy those people as well. Checklists, those kind of relate back to tasks. So I won't touch on that a whole lot today, but we'll have another webinar on that next month. And then same thing kind of for reports, locations, and tags. And then the last three here, these form templates, folders, and settings, those are definitely some important ones. The form templates, so if you're gonna have like daily reports that you want to be standardized across the board for your whole company, it's great to have that form live within the template project, and that makes sure every time they copy that template that they're filling out the same type of daily report across the board. And then folders, that just relates to your files and your plan folders, and then settings are your general settings within a project. So I'm going to jump over into a template that's been built out already. And we're going to start off by just going through some of the basic kind of setup here that should be done when you're creating your template. So the first thing is just setting up your folders. So in this case, they've been set up already, but basically these will be sorted alphanumerically by, so if you want to sort them by in a certain order, just go ahead and put a number in front of each one. And then otherwise it'll just sort it by alphabetically. So I recommend doing it by subtrades. That's kind of a standard way of doing it. But if you have different ways that you want to organize your plans and your folders, that's totally up to you. But this is kind of an easy, common way of doing it. And then if you want to add a new folder, pretty simple, just hit new folder and then add one. Same thing goes for files. So these it's also sorted alphanumerically. We don't have any numbers here, so it's just sorted alphabetically here. We actually somewhat recently came out with subfolders. So if you wanted to create subfolder structure within your files, you can do that as well. You would just go ahead and click into a folder and then hit new folder, and then you can add the name of that. So I just hit test, create, and then it's going to live within there. And as you can see, when I hit new folder, it gives me this option to choose access levels. So that relates back to those project permissions like I was talking about. So if you want to limit who can see certain things in a folder, you can choose those different permission levels. So those plans and file folders are definitely some great things to kind of have standardized across your projects. It makes it easy for people to navigate and kind of get in, like when they get into a new project, they know exactly where to go and where to find things. Another basic kind of setting or a basic thing to set up is the settings here. And that's just this little icon down here. And I would recommend, there's a lot you can do within here, but just for your template project, kind of some of the more basic stuff is probably what you want to tackle first. Just this time zone, your measurement, currency, manpower units, and then your notification settings up here. So this is just going to let you kind of control how much information is being relayed out to your team members. So if you feel like you want to have everything or notifications coming all the time for everything, you can enable that. But if you feel like you're getting bombarded with a bunch of emails, then you can choose to toggle these things on and off. And then storage optimization, this just kind of controls how much you're storing, like old information you're storing. So in this case, this is archiving tasks. So tasks that are, you can choose how long they'll stay on the plans after they've been completed and verified. And then same thing for plan revisions. If you want to store all your plan revisions or up to 10, you can do that. Or you can choose it to be just a couple. So yeah. And then all these other settings, these are going to be things that we'll cover a little bit more in depth next month when we do our task webinar. Yeah. And then the next thing is just those form templates I was talking about before. So I would recommend kind of figuring out what those standard forms are that you're going to be using across the board, like your daily reports and your T&M tags, and creating standard templates for those, and then having them live within that template project. So that way, when you clone it, you know that you're using the same template across each different project, and there's a standardized way of filling out your daily reports or your T&M tags across the board. The last thing, I'll briefly touch on it. I know I've said it a couple times, but we're doing another webinar solely on this, so you'll get a lot more information pretty soon. But the tasks, so the last portion of setting up your template project is just figuring out how you want to track your work. And the way to do that is just setting up your different task statuses. So the great thing about the statuses is these are fully customizable, and you just need to kind of think about how you want to create your different workflows. And the beauty of these is you have these different colors for each status. So when I'm looking at this on a plan, I can easily see that this one is on hold without actually having to click into it. I know that that color means it's on hold, and it's easy to navigate that in the field. And we can have up to 7 of these, and you can change the colors, you can reorder them. And then the other portion of that is just the different categories. So this is kind of a standard commercial workflow, but if you wanted to get a little bit more detailed with your own workflow, you can have as many different categories as you like. And the great thing about these is you can filter out for each category. So if I wanted to just look at electrical, I can do that. And the other great part of it is that I have this 2-digit identifier. So if I'm looking on the plans and I click open a plan here, I can see that this issue is on hold and it's related to plumbing because it has that PL there without ever actually having to click into it. So that's kind of something that you may want to think about a little bit more as you kind of get more comfortable with Fieldwire, of like what kind of workflow, what things you want to track. But we'll be giving some great kind of workflows and ideas again next month when we do that dedicated task webinar. I know we're just about at time for doing the Q&A here. So I'll hand it back over to you, Will.
Awesome. Thanks, Dylan. I just sent out a quick poll, and thanks to everyone for answering that. So just wanted to wrap up today. If there's any questions, please type them up in the Q&A over there. And likewise, any questions that we aren't able to get through today, we will be reaching out via an email, and you'll also be receiving a copy of this recording and slide deck. So just gonna go through some of these questions here. Lots of questions, so love them. And I've been trying to answer these questions as we're going through the webinar today. Let's see here. One of the questions I've received here was, is Fieldwire able to, are you able to invite other users to the project as well under the same account? Yes, and that's actually the beauty of Fieldwire. That's where we can kind of really encourage collaboration between the teams and make sure that there's increased visibility amongst the team, whether it's information flow or sharing plans, information, and kind of managing risk. And let's see here. Another question is, will Fieldwire have access to project information drawings? I'll hand that over to Dylan to talk about it.
What was that question again? Repeat that back, Will.
Will Fieldwire have an access to project information / drawings?
In terms of like, I guess I'll take that as like your private information. We won't have access unless we get invited by you to that project. So we can't just access your detailed information that you're putting into a project unless you decide to invite one of us to that project.
Awesome.
Hopefully that answers the question.
And that's actually part of our security commitment to everyone here. We're kind of making sure that information within the project stays only within the team. And another question here is, how do we go about scheduling customer demo or learning more about the product? And are we supposed to invite customers to see these webinars?
Yeah, these webinars are kind of a public facing thing. So if you feel like it's relevant to anybody, please send these the invite link. But yeah, our goal is to get this out to as many people as possible and just kind of educate people on Fieldwire and continue to, our goal is right now, it's kind of set the stage for some more advanced content coming later in the year. So yeah, if you feel it's relevant to anybody, please send it their way.
Yep, and I actually just posted a link on our chat here. In case you are interested in learning more about Fieldwire and want to schedule a demo, please feel free to check out our website with a bunch of information to learn more about it. And I think we have time for one last question before we wrap up. Let me just kind of try to pick from here.
Also, I just want to apologize about the slides not advancing. I don't know what happened with that exactly, but be sharing the slide deck and the recording after this.
Yep. And last question, just so we can wrap up here. One of the users asked, is Fieldwire cloud-based, or can we also access this information, via internal storage?
It is cloud-based, but for your mobile devices, you actually enable projects and store them on your device. So that way you can work on and offline. So it does update in real time as long as you have connectivity, but in the field, you download the project and then you can work offline. So hopefully that answers that.
Awesome. Thanks, Dylan. And thanks everyone for attending today's session. Just a quick reminder here, we have a survey we're going to send out at the end, and would love if you're able to fill it out. Probably won't take more than 2 minutes, and it will really help us distinguish, what we should do in our next webinar. Any questions, and we're happy to help. And